Starseeds, this is Oracle Oriah, and I am here with Dennis Strahl, and welcome to Quantum Mysteries. And we love to discover everything metaphysical, alien, quantum mechanics, technology, alien technology. We love talking about everything, and we bring our own experiences. Myself as a shaman, Dennis is a metaphysician. Like, what would you call yourself? Like an observer. He's somebody who has studied many experts and has gone to so many expos at Contact in the Desert. And plus he has been studying this phenomenon since, I think you started in your 20s, right, Dennis?
Yes.
In your 20s.
Yes, because I was having, I had a missing time experience when I was in my 20s.
Oh, well, we have to talk about that because
We'll
today's
talk about
topic,
that later for sure, yes.
Absolutely. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about Travis Walton from Fire in the Sky. And I have to be clear, that's a true story. However, Fire in the Sky was not depicted exactly how it occurred according to Travis Walton. We have seen him speak. Dennis has gotten to know him intimately on a trip to the location and the site where Travis Walton actually was abducted. We're going to go step by step through that entire experience. We did get to meet Travis Walton at the last Contact in the Desert, which I'm so excited. We're definitely going to talk about that. We're going to talk about contactee experience, the taboo around the UFO disclosure, and the government's refusal of funding and helping this phenomenon come to the public. But more importantly, we need to discuss that Dennis lives in the high desert, and he is literally sitting in 110-degree weather right now, and it's 7 p.m. at night. And so his high today was, what was your high today?
Oh, I asked Alexa this morning, what's the weather today? And she responded, the forecast is for 115 by mid-afternoon with rain showers. And I'm thinking, oh, gee, it won't be humid or anything, will it? So it was an intensely hot day. It's still hot outside. I mean, the sun is just about down, but I think it's still about 112 on my back patio in the shade.
This is called dedication, guys, that he literally, during the summer months, he has been on this show. He comes straight from work and he goes right onto the show. And I will tell you, I don't know how he does it, because I don't know if I could actually be in that weather right now and function. Thank God he has air conditioning, but still, the walls of your house, like, they start seeping in.
It does.
Yeah,
it does. Yes.
Yeah. So what I am super excited about, I've been thinking about it ever since he told me the story. I can't stop thinking about it because I want to just share my experience when I saw Fire in the Sky many years ago when it came out. It was one of the first UFO movies based on a true story that really affected me. And I was deeply moved. I was scared. I had a lot of emotions going through me regarding, just the legitimacy, but just the overall feeling of what this man Travis experienced. And so over the years, Travis has finally started coming out and speaking his side of the story, exactly what happened. The filmmakers embellished to a certain degree, but he did have the experience of being abducted. He was gone for 5 days. He did come back and have to crawl pretty much back into town. I don't think he was naked like the show said he was, because I think when he told his side of the story in the latest documentary that's out, he did say, I showed him with clothes. But yeah, the story Fire in the Sky was pretty dramatic. So what I would love for you to do, Dennis, is I don't know how well you know the Travis story, but can you walk me through exactly what happened to Travis, for those of you who do not know? And then tell us how you got to be invited and how your experience was. So you're going to just talk for a while, and we're going to listen in on what happened to you.
And as usual, anytime you want to interrupt to ask a specific question or clarification.
About that. I will.
Yeah. Feel free to do that. Good. Okay. Well, we always have fun that way. So welcome everybody that's listening here today. Oriah and I love to have fun with our conversations, and hopefully you have fun too, and then we inspire you maybe to do a little research, or maybe have a different, more in-depth perspective on something that you were skeptical about before, and it's like, well, now that kind of makes sense. Maybe I'll look into that more myself. And that's what we want you to do. The more research, Oriah and I both are very diligent researchers, And we don't claim to be an expert on anything, okay? But we share with you our personal experiences. Oriah and her awesome husband, Riz, you're friends of mine for many years. I went to their wedding. They're both very, very talented and innovative and intuitive. And I love hanging out with folks like that. And so we just have a lot in common that way. And we love to share our stories, and we do have some fun stories to share. So to get to Travis Walton, so the story goes, he was a lumberjack, and he and the crew that he was with, which was another 5 or 6 guys.
This is Snowflake, Arizona, correct?
Snowflake, Arizona, yes.
Small little town.
And so, yes, yeah, very small little town. Still is a small town when you go there. Anyhow, beautiful area though, beautiful area in kind of eastern Arizona, central eastern Arizona. And it's all forested up there. So that's why he was a lumberjack. There was 5 or 6 other guys on the crew. And they had finished up for the night. And the sun had just gone down. So they were coming back in the dark, driving through the woods, so to say, or the forest, whatever you want to call it. Trees big enough to, fell for lumber, so to say. Anyway, so up ahead, they see this really, really bright light that's kind of, up above the ground. Not way up high, but, maybe, I don't know, 100, 150 feet, something like that, they were guessing. And so they're getting closer and closer. It happened to be right in line with the direction that they were going on a dirt road to get back to the pavement and go back home for the evening, right? So pretty soon they get kind of like right up on it, and it had lowered down and was hovering just above the trees, but in kind of a little clearing area.
And so they saw, interrupting you, sorry, they saw through the trees this beaming light that was brighter than anything they've ever seen. And they were working late that day because they were kind of late, they had a big job, and they went overtime. So it was a little dark. And they saw,
and they were quite a ways deep.
Yeah, and they didn't know.
And they were quite a ways deep in the woods too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were quite a ways. They were quite a ways deep in the woods too, because when we went there, we had to park a ways from the actual site and then hike in the rest of the way. So he says, yeah, the dirt road that we were on, here's pretty much after all the years of snow and rain and hail and everything like that, it didn't exist anymore. So we weren't able to drive right up to it. As they depicted in the film, if you remember, they were right close. It was just right off the right-hand side of the road.
Right.
So
They had to walk. I think they were in their truck, and then Travis got out.
Correct. So Travis jumps out, and everybody's yelling at him, hey, get back in here. What the hell are you doing? So he jumps out and walks over and goes right underneath it and is looking straight up. And as he's looking up, this bright beam of light comes down and knocks him out cold.
Knocks him out cold.
And so then his friends freak out and take off.
And meanwhile, he's being lifted up like a doll body. He's just hanging there.
Yes. And so a little ways down the road, the head of the crew who happened to be driving the truck, he goes, hey, man, Travis is our buddy. We can't just leave him behind back there. We got to turn around. And about half the guys are going, no, we got to get out of here. That was a UFO or whatever. Right. And so some of them get out of the truck and wait. They're afraid to go back. And the head of the crew and a couple of the other guys, they turn around and go back and pick Travis up. Well, when they get back there, he's gone. And it's like, Travis, oh, nowhere to be found. So they had to go back into town. And, then the police got involved, of course. And, where is your friend?
Yeah, because they went and they had to tell him what happened. And
exactly.
nobody believed them. They said that there's no way. Nobody believed them, yeah. So they gave them all these lie detector tests. They passed all the tests.
Yes.
And they were
terrified.
They were terrified. Yeah. These poor kids were in their 20s, and the youngest one was 17 or 18. And
sure.
They thought
they thought they were all going to be convicted of murder as a group. Let's do away with Travis. We'll bury him out in the forest there, and nobody will ever find him. And that's what they were being accused of.
It was total mayhem and chaos. Yep. Everyone knew everyone in Snowflake. So the rumors, everyone started just tearing these poor kids apart, and these kids were scared to death. Their own families were turning against them. What did you do with Travis? They thought
when they'd
maybe
eat in
got
the
into
local
a fight.
cafe, everybody'd harass them, you know, eating in the local cafe, people would harass them and look at them like, you know, you guys are murderers. We know you did away with Travis. And it was
Well, you know,
fun.
they sent investigators to the location site and there was no footprints. And,
Right.
and they did see the depression to where the actual craft had landed. They saw that the plant life had changed and dramatically. So they did search and rescue. They couldn't find him. There was no tracks. There's no trace of him. The dogs couldn't find him. Everybody was just on pins and needles.
Yeah, they were out in the woods during the daytime, if you recall. They were out in the woods during the daytime with, I guess, a couple hundred search people, you know, everybody loved Travis. So the whole town was out searching for him. Like you say, they had sniff dogs, you know, trying to find him, and they could not find him.
Yeah.
Nor could they find a burial site.
You know, his friends never thought they were going to see Travis again.
Exactly.
Could you imagine how terrifying that is? Like, your friend is dead. He is gone. And you know an aircraft lifted him up because you saw him go through the air.
That's right.
Okay. So it was the first time first time in history, there were 7 of them.
Yes.
It was the first time in history that all 7 people saw the same thing in a UFO sighting. That's why this is the most documented and most tested case there is and the most powerful case.
Oh, yeah.
So 5 days later, there's a phone call to his brother. Travis called his brother-in-law because they were best friends.
No, it's actually his brother.
His real brother.
Mistaken. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was
his real brother. He called and said, you know, come and get me. And what was interesting was when we came back out of the woods, and I'll tell you what went on in the woods and everything too. And in fact, just a little more background real quick before we go deeper into this part.
Yeah.
Travis Walton has been a keynote speaker at Contact in the Desert, which is the largest annual UFO conference on the planet right now. It lasts for 4 days in a row. And he was there for all of the first 7 years, which I was in attendance to, so I saw him every year. So he's been talking about it for a long time. And like Oriah mentioned, telling the true story because they did embellish a lot in the film. And anyway, so another speaker at Contact in the Desert for several years was a Dr. Roger Lear. Well, Dr. Lear specialized, he was a surgeon that had a clinic and lived and worked in Los Angeles.
Is he the son of the founder of Lear Jets?
Founder of which? Lear
Jets. Let me look him up.
I don't recall. I don't recall that part of his career. You may be right. I'm just not sure. At any rate, so as Oriah knows, and some of you may know, for about 10 years straight, I was full-time in the mining business. And so I was up in Central Nevada, not far from Area 51, actually, with my mining partner and mentor, Paul, and he happened to be friends with Dr. Lear.
Is Dr. Lear's name Dr. Roger Lear?
Dr. Roger Lear, yes.
It says he was an American pediatric surgeon and ufologist, best known as an investigator of alleged alien implants.
Exactly.
Right.
So anyway, so Roger calls my buddy Paul. We're, you know, out in the middle of nowhere prospecting for gold, right? I mean, really in a really remote place. But we had cell signal, fortunately. And I could tell from hearing one half of the conversation, a pretty interesting conversation. And so Paul hangs up. I said, is that Dr. Lear? He says, yeah. I said, what's going on? He says, well, how would you like to go out on an adventure into Arizona? I said, yeah, what's cooking? He says, well, you know, he's friends with Travis Walton. I said, really? He says, yeah. And Travis agreed to take Dr. Lear out into the woods and said he could bring some friends along. So you and I are invited to go with Dr. Lear to see firsthand, step by step in the woods, exactly where Travis got beamed up by that UFO. So we dropped what we were doing in the middle of the day.
This is like one of the best moments of your life beside the birth of your daughter.
Oh, it was exciting. No kidding. Very exciting, you know. So we hurried back. This was like, you know, I don't know, noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And we just dropped what we were doing, hurried back to the hotel we usually stayed in there in Tonopah, Nevada, and hot dogged it down to Arizona, you know, ready to rock and roll.
Oh, man.
So there was about 5 or 6 of us that went out into the woods with Travis. And we were only able to park so close, and we had to hike a little ways in because the dirt road had been just obscured by Mother Earth weather, you know. Nobody was driving back in there to do any lumber cutting anymore for not a lot of years. So, you know, the overgrowth grows in. So anyhow, you could definitely see a large circular area where the vegetation was different.
Now,
And
the
the difference,
vegetation, from what I understand, has grown thicker and more lush
correct.
because
Yeah,
of the
something
radiation.
like 30 to 33% faster, more accelerated growth. Okay, and he told us, he says, you know, many times the MIBs, he says there really are MIBs. They really are, you know, the reason they call them men in black is because, yeah, they've got black shoes and black socks and black suits and black dress shirts and a black tie and black sunglasses and a black hat, just like in the movie The MIBs. He says that's what those guys look like. And they come and drag us.
He had seen it.
Pardon?
He
Yeah,
has,
these guys would come and knock on his door. This was after he got back again.
wow.
He says they'd come and knock on the door and say, hey, Travis, we want you to go back out of the woods again. We got more questions for you. And he says it got old after a while, you know, and they would try to make me and my friends sign testimonials as to what happened, which was not at all what happened. In other words, they wanted pretty much to debunk our experience or my experience and say, oh, there's no such thing as UFOs, there's no such thing as aliens, this guy's, you know, a nutcase or whatever. He says they did everything that they could to disprove us. And he says, you know, I was 19 years old and, you know, and a tough, smart young kid, and I wasn't about to put, I know what happened to me.
He was offered and bribed money, I heard,
yes,
to change his story. Hold on, I
Yep.
gotta get more comfortable. 1 second.
Okay.
My leg is cramping. Okay, hold on. Okay, so I heard that he was bribed by a
Yes.
government official that went, I think, through the police department or one of the FBI agents, and they tried to bribe, I think, him or the youngest one to change their story.
Yes.
Because it was all over the headlines.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And he refused.
Yeah, they
money.
did everything that they could to, you know,
So
debunk
could you
it
imagine
as
his family trying to convince him to take the money and stop all this nonsense, and they don't want to talk about it? He said that he was so distraught for those after he came back after those 5 days that he could not even see anyone in public. He was so disturbed internally and had such big PTSD from the experience.
Exactly.
Okay.
And well, I remember one of the things he said. He says, you know, one moment just before, I mean, that day he had clean shaven himself, and then he says, you know, and then I had basically a week of missing time, although ultimately he had recalled what happened on the ship, you know, and you know, and he had a 5-day growth on his beard. And he says that was one of the first things that I noticed when I kind of woke up along the side of the road, and I was right near this little old gas station with the old phone booths, you know, like Superman used to change in, you know, the stand-up phone booths with the glass all around.
Yes.
And there's 3 of them sitting there, okay? And it was interesting because when we came back out of the woods, he says, you see those 3 phone booths there? Yeah. He says, you know, since cell phones have been out for quite a few years, he says they took every single phone booth like this out through the whole state of Arizona. These are the only 3 that are left because they know that the middle one was where I made the phone call to my brother to come out and get me.
Wow.
And I said, oh, wow, could you step over there and let me take a picture? He said, sure, Dennis. So I got a picture of, so I got a picture of him standing by the phone booth, you know.
Dennis, you have to share that with me so I can put it up.
Yeah, I've got it. I've got so many photos. I've got it archived somewhere. I'll find it.
I want to make a little album.
Yeah,
Put it on the Starseed.
I'll see what I can find because I snapped a few pictures out there. You know, one of the interesting things that he showed us, okay, as far as the vegetation goes and the acceleration of growth, the government would come out and cut trees down, maybe leaving a stump about 10 or 12 inches tall, of trees that were inside the circle as the years went by.
Right.
And ones that were outside the area of, let's say, energetic influence of the craft, okay?
Right.
And you could see how many more rings, of course, usually another ring, when you cut a tree off, each ring represents a year as far as determining the age of the tree. And so everything that was inside the circle was growing like at about 3 times the normal rate.
And also the rings of the tree itself were kind of, they're usually round, but it was getting elongated. It was growing
Yes.
towards the radiation. It was going
Yep.
towards the circle, and trees don't grow like that. It was out of nature.
Exactly.
Very
Exactly.
similar. You know how they found out it had radiation is because there was a scientist who did a study in Chernobyl. There was one documented account of studying the trees at Chernobyl, and they saw the trees were growing like that, and they matched it, and that's how they knew there was that level of radiation. So did you hear that Travis, you know, he wouldn't allow any lie detector tests when he first got back because he was under so much stress and he couldn't even see anyone or be interviewed or anything. But then he went to go see a hypnotherapist to find out what happened to him on the ship.
Yes.
And that's in his documentary. And so he did the hypnotherapy and he started to remember that he did remember waking up and seeing beings, and they were looking over at him, and it looked like tall grays or short grays. They're different sizes, and they were coming towards him like to hold him down or work on him, and he jumped up and tried to like attack them and took off running. And then he ran into this man he was kind of male female, but he looked human, but he wasn't, and he wouldn't speak to him. And they looked at each other, and Travis was trying to get help. So could you imagine? And this UFO is like giant UFO, and there's all these rooms, and it was kind of dimly lighted, and he was terrified. I've tried to put myself in his shoes so many times of what I would feel to be in an alien craft that you can't even recognize. You don't even know where you are.
And it's not like they said, hey, come on in and have a seat, and we'll have a couple of beers and talk about it. Right. No, it was kind of a stressful experience for him, unfortunately.
Very stressful. Right.
Yes.
So finally, eventually, he did go get the lie detector test. Once he calmed down, and he passed. So now they had everybody is on the same page. They're all passing the lie detector test. And it's one of the best stories. I mean, the fact you got.
It is an amazing story. I'm so glad that you and Riz got to meet him at Contact in the Desert, you know, because it's one thing to see the movie and to, you know, and hear stories and everything, but when you actually get to meet him and shake his hand and, you know, hear him speak live like that. And then, you know, and I was so blessed to be able to go out in the woods and actually see those trees, you know, and he walked us over, okay, look at this one, and then look at this one and they're able to tell both of these trees before the event were exactly the same age and exactly the same diameter. And then the ones inside the energy
vortex
being radiated by the craft, everything was growing faster and bigger.
Still to this day. And he location. He won't give the location, which is really smart of him. So many people have asked from around the world. But he has talked about his experience of what it's been like to be in the public eye. He never, ever dreamed anything like this would have ever happened to him. And there's many times he wished that it never did. And, you know, he had a lot of negative experiences. He still is in the lumber company, the same one. He's just an executive now. But he has not made any real big money from the film. And, you know, it's kind of a little bit sad. He was like...
My mining partner, Paul, asked him very directly and respectfully, of course, when we were out in the woods and at the spot. He says, you know, Travis, if you had to do it all over again, would you have kept this whole thing a secret? He says, in hindsight, yes. He says, but, you know, it was impossible to do that because everybody thought I'd been murdered and, you know, and everybody was, you know, oh my gosh, he's alive. So, you know, you couldn't avoid the public exposure that occurred because of the way that the event went down. But if he had been in control.
How old he is now? Do you have any idea how old he is?
I don't. I would guess that he's probably. I would guess that he's probably in his late 60s, something like that.
Yeah, let me look it up because when I last saw him, he's 63. April 23rd is his birthday. So, you know, the thing is, the feeling I got from him when I met him, and I don't know if you had that feeling too, but he just looks really tired of being in the public eye like this. It's a lot of, he's desensitized.
I agree.
He didn't remember you at first, and then you had to remind him. He has met so many millions of people, and, you know, he kind of is like a public service person now. He has to serve the public with this story. He has such a massive story. It's incredible. Well, you know, I wanted to tell you, I mean, you had a time missing story, which I would love for you to share, where you missed time, and I did too. But what I want to tell you is that, you know, there's different kinds of contactee experiences. Like that was a very physical 3D. You can go online, there's stories, you can go on YouTube and Gaia. There's stories of people who have literally been regularly taken straight off their couch
Yes.
and pulled into a ship awake and returned. And there's people, especially in the desert, who they will make contracts with these aliens, and for 20 years. And you would think, what do they want with these people? Like with Travis, I mean, I'm sure they were using, you know, they were, what did they call it when they were like retracting, pulling out the sperm for their hybridization program.
Right.
I'm sure
right.
that was happening. That's a main thing. You know, people don't understand when they hear aliens and then they hear starseeds, they think they're two separate things, and they're not. Because an alien is an alien. So anybody who's off planet is an alien, including Pleiadians and Lyrians and Orions and Arcturians and like,
Oh, yes.
you can go, and there's thousands.
And actually, the term starseed very well fits them when you think about it, because they're from the stars,
right?
And they are here seeding our planet.
That's
star
right.
seeds. They are here seeding our planet with advanced intelligence, healing capabilities, telepathic capabilities.
Now, I heard
technological
that the reason
capabilities.
why they love the human DNA sperm is because our DNA is a combination of many interplanetary species.
Exactly.
So just like, you know, a dog, a mutt dog that's, you know, just like multiple different.
Yeah, it's part Rottweiler and part Chihuahua.
They have the most
Bulldog.
hardiest, they're the hardiest immune system. They have the least amount of physical problems. And then you have
That's right.
dogs, or dogs that are constantly breeded and
Yes.
bred, and then they have a lot of health problems. So I wonder
Exactly.
if, because we're mutts, we have a strong disposition, we have strong DNA.
Well, and you know, it's so interesting you bring that up, Oriah, because think about this too, relative to what all is going on now. The majority of people, you know, that live in reasonably safe and healthy environments, there are many of us that remain at a thriving level of health, in spite of all of the pollution, the air that we breathe, all of the additives, the fluoride in the water, the aluminum that's in the deodorant that goes to your brain, and all of these things that are barraging us, and we still manage to raise our vibration high enough to where our body and our energy, because everything is quantum, you know, there's nothing that we talk about where quantum mechanics and quantum physics isn't involved. That anybody anywhere can talk about, because, you know, I always like to remind everyone, where again are there not any quantum particles? Oh, they're everywhere. They're the base material of everything. Well, yes, they're the base material of all of the atoms. And next up from an atom is a molecule, and next up from a molecule, and in all of these universities everywhere, all these PhD, formerly atheist physicists, that when they start looking into quantum physics and doing quantum physics experiments and finding that consciousness does influence quantum particles, which is the base material of everything, then all of a sudden they start, you know, well, maybe there is something. I don't want to call it God because I'm an atheist, but, you know, some sort of divine intelligence must be behind this, you know, because they start looking into the vibrations of cymatics. Well, what's that? Well, sound can produce with a cymatics type of machine, as they call it. That's cymatics for any of you that have never heard of that. Just look up cymatics on YouTube and watch some documentary videos. They're fascinating, but it's a matter of sound creating perfect geometric patterns, and a given frequency will produce a given specific pattern. And I think that this is part of what all of these alien visitations that we get, and what maybe that they're trying to teach us when we go on board the ship willingly, as many people do, as you mentioned. Yeah, that, you know, I don't think it's because they want to talk to you about yesterday's yoga class. It's probably something very important. And so for those of you that are listening to this that know that you've been on board and that it was a benevolent experience, you may not have recall of the content, but you can pretty well bet, in my opinion, okay, that you're there learning something very, very important. And, you know, it's not just small.
It's not only us learning, they're also mining and learning from us too, because even their own, many of their species don't have abilities that we have. So they need
Exactly.
to strengthen their DNA. So they take
Well, and our extremes of emotions,
Right.
I heard Ramtha say one time, I got a big kick out of this. You human beings here on Earth are known as the masters of emotion throughout the galaxies.
Oh, great. We're not very proud of that, by the way.
Well, you know, I mean, it certainly
long as we can keep it under
enriches
control.
one's experience, because I often think, well, you know, the little grays, for example.
Yeah.
I kind of perceive the little grays as being kind of emotionless. You know, they may be very, very intelligent. They may be able to telepathically talk and levitate and everything, but they're kind of emotionless. You know, I don't picture two little grays falling madly in love and rushing to the closest hotel room.
No, these are I think these are like AIs, you know, programs.
I agree with you. I thought that for a long time.
So did you know, okay, so I was talking to Riz about this. So I think it was the CIA. This is in the New York Times. So the CIA last year disclosed those 3 videos that the Pentagon had in their National Defense Library of the UFOs that were seen by the Air Force.
Yes.
I'll give you the link. So though that was disclosed last year. Riz immediately.
Last year at Contact, several of the speakers had that footage and showed it at Contact in the desert.
So this is the first time it was disclosed. Nothing was said in the public. It was totally silent.
Exactly.
So then
fact,
it was brought up again recently. It started to get a new wave and people started talking about it, but still nothing. So then I was reading this really great article. I posted it on my United Starseed Connections group on Facebook. I posted this link that there was kind of like an interview with a scientist about this topic, about how real is this now that the government has disclosed this? Is this now becoming a real topic? Can we really discuss this now and it's not taboo? And the scientist said, until there is government funding that's going to allow legitimate scientists to work on this project, not one scientist is going to come forward for fear they will be rejected and ridiculed, and they will be disbarred basically from the scientific community because they're considered, you know, like they went off the deep end. They're not going to be taken seriously, even though the government has shown proof.
Yes.
The scientists are scared still.
I'm so glad that you brought this up because, you know, I have many friends over the years that have thought that I was a nutcase for believing in UFOs, in spite of what I know I've seen, and experienced my two really cool missing time experiences that I had. Anyway, you know, when that finally came out, this footage that you shared again with me today, as a matter of fact, and I did watch it again just before the show, and I remembered seeing that, and you know, I remember going to some of my friends and saying, you know, I remember you saying over the years that, gee, Dennis, I'll believe that UFOs are real when the government says it's true.
Right.
I said, well, the last time that I checked, I think that one of the videos was from the Air Force and the other one was from the U.S. Navy because it was out over the ocean. And gee, last time I checked, isn't the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Air Force a branch of the U.S. government?
Yep.
So if they say it's true and you're still saying, oh, I don't believe in that hogwash, well, what is it going to take? You know, you're changing your story now. You told me before, if the government said, yes, it's true, that you'd believe it, and you're still in disbelief. Are you that brainwashed?
Can you believe that? We've
been
waiting and waiting and waiting for the disclosure. It comes, goes, no one talks about it. And then the scientists won't touch it.
I know.
And the government's not going to give funding.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, just add that to the list of the human experience.
Exactly.
You know, the really good thing, I've been thinking about this, about the desensitization, which I could never say that word right, desensitization. I've been thinking about what the alien community and just, you know, the collaboration between real aliens and the ufologists that are studying them and the experts and the government, just like the whole underground conversation of desensitizing society that started in the 1950s.
Sure.
I'll tell you a positive. it's working. We're desensitized. It's official. So that must mean we're getting closer. So that means that if we do have some alien beings show up that are creating it to be very official, like they're coming on an official mission.
Visit.
Yeah,
Yes.
because the aliens that are already here on the planet, we don't know who they are, where they are. We can't see them. Some people can.
Or why they're here. You know, that's another big question is why are they
They've
here?
been here.
What is it that they're trying to do? Yeah.
They've been here at the beginning of time. You know, we don't know. So like it has to come like very official. They have to land. They have to have negotiations. We have to see pictures of them talking to presidents. Then we have to make sure it wasn't Photoshop. Then we have to go through all the media outlets to make sure this wasn't propaganda, that this was believable, because nobody's believing media anymore. And so nothing is going to be really believed at this point. Like people are not going to believe when the actual aliens start talking to our officials.
Even when they show.
Dennis, can we have a moment with that? I really want to expand on that for a second because it drives me absolutely insane thinking about this. I have driven myself to madness thinking about the thought that aliens could land, come off of their ship, look completely like aliens in every way, be documented with press. So there's cameras everywhere taking shots. It's live feeds. They go and sit and have a talk with the leader of our free world, quote unquote free world. And so they sit there and talk to the government, the president. And
everybody says, oh, that's Steven Spielberg work.
Of course they are. And then they're not going to believe anything from the government, to the media, to the pictures, to the photography, to the who's involved, what's the agenda, blah, blah, blah. And then, I mean, the good news is the desensitization is to such a degree that, yes, people are going to sit back and go, well, you know, honey, did you see the news? They said there's aliens. Did you see that alien over there? I don't know if it's real or not. So I guess it's better than panicking. I guess that's better than everyone going haywire and going and jumping off of bridges. I guess that's better than that. But like, what happened to us where we are not acknowledging otherworldly beings?
I saw a funny little meme the other day of a gray in a supermarket looking down the aisle with all the shelves empty and only like maybe 1 or 2 packages left of toilet paper. And the little gray is saying, this is why we don't land. Look what you do. You panic and freak out and there's no freaking toilet paper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this has been a big conversation I've had alone with myself in my own thoughts. I got so worked up.
I thought about the same thing. Because,
I almost lost my voice. I got so worked up.
Well, you wonder, you know, I mean, when you were just mentioning, Oriah, you know, showing on TV and everything, I mean, they could show, you know how they can split the screen like you would with security cameras, you know, I can see 9 different views here on the screen all at once. Okay, here's the mothership that's hovering over the Kremlin in Moscow right now. Here's the mothership that's hovering over the White House right now. Oh, here's the ships that are hovering over every state capital in the United States. So there are thousands and thousands of people seeing these things live that happen to be driving by the state capitol in Sacramento, California, for example, or in Reno, Nevada, or wherever they are. You know, every other country's, you know, capitol building. And I would imagine that if you were an ET group and you really wanted to make yourselves known, that's probably how you do it. It'd be undeniable worldwide because you'd be making yourselves seen and known. You know that they've got the technology to take over all radio and TV in whatever language is necessary simultaneously and say, we are here. You know, the same, like TVs where they're turning the channels on the old-fashioned TV and every channel shows the same thing. You know, or you're turning the radio dial and every station has exactly the same thing. They could do that if they wanted to.
They can.
And maybe that's what it will take. You know, gee Martha, look at this. No matter what channel I go, oh gee George, look at that. He's that alien guy's on every single channel. Well, what's going on?
Apparently, they must be very sentient beings if they're so sensitive that they're waiting until us fragile human beings stop running around like chickens with our head cut off. They're waiting for us to calm down and become more mature as a species so that they can show up. So obviously they're intelligent. Obviously they're sentient beings that they don't want to freak us out. So we start killing everything and everyone and burning buildings.
Exactly.
So
Well,
they're
we're already doing that. You know, I mean, I often respond to people that ask me very directly, you know, why do you think they haven't landed yet? And pretty much my stock answer is, well, if you were in a beautiful cloaked ship cruising around this planet right now and could translate any language, and you're listening to all the radio broadcasts and watching all of the TV broadcasts and seeing what's going on this planet, you'd say to yourself, well, golly, they still fight amongst themselves on their own planet. We haven't had fighting amongst ourselves on our planet, you know, 2 galaxies away for 3 million years.
It's true.
So if they can't even get along with themselves, how are they going to react if we land? Oh my gosh, they'll come after us like, you know, we're some foreign invaders.
Obviously, they can decloak at any time and
Sure.
show themselves. And by the way, you know, one time I did a psilocybin journey and I was out sitting on my balcony and I was looking out at the stars. It was nighttime and I saw nothing but UFOs flying everywhere. And I wasn't able to see that unless I was journeying. So I literally saw them flicker in and flicker out. And I said to myself, so this is what's happening all the time above our heads. So let me put it into scope for you. So like just this screen right here. So imagine like every inch is taken up with a dot, a little tiny pin light, and they're all going like this. All at the same time. And they look like sparkling diamonds. And I stared and I stared. I wiped my eyes. I went inside, came outside. It was still there. I couldn't believe it. I looked down. I looked back up. I kept testing my vision and it was still there. And then I asked Riz to come out and then he saw it. And then we started talking about it. And that's when I realized, that was the first time I realized there are UFOs by the millions all around our planet, in our atmosphere, in our outer atmosphere, decloaked, or they're cloaked, so you can't see them. And they're watching us.
Exactly.
We freak out with the sight. Are you kidding me? There's so many. So like, I always wonder who's around me. Like, is there like UFOs above my head? Like, you know, I think about that all the time.
I forgot to tell you, last month I had a broad daylight sighting. I had just left my office, and it was a craft that I've never seen in any, you know, UFO movies or documentaries or videos. I've never heard of this description, and I ended up having 2 witnesses that saw it along with me.
Oh wow!
Okay? Yeah, and here's what it looked like. It was really something. It was about 5:15, 5:30, and of course it's summertime right now, so the sun was still up quite high, probably 30 degrees above the horizon to the west above the mountain. It's a 10,000-foot mountain that rises on the west side of Palm Springs, California. So anyway, I'm looking east and up, and gosh, I would have to guess at the altitude that it was at, maybe the altitude of when an airplane is coming in to land, but at their highest altitude coming in to land at an airport. And actually, this is not far away where this occurred, from the Palm Springs Airport, International Airport. So anyhow, what I saw was, it was like a big, well, you know those, what do they call them, noodles that you can float on in a swimming pool?
Yeah, like a tube.
Yeah, a tube, yeah. So let's say you had one of those and you connected both ends. So now it's round, it's tubular and it's round, but it has the resiliency of a ribbon floating through the wind. So it's kind of going like this, okay? And it had one bright blue light on this blue ribbon, and it was such vivid blue that, I mean, it was a bright blue sky, but still, it was starkly there, this big blue tube ribbon going like this, and it was spinning because it had one bright blue light that was spinning on the edge of this ribbon.
So Dennis, you and I both know this about the distortion, because we've talked about this, of how they project what's behind them what's in front of them, behind them, behind
holographically.
them.
Yep, holographically, exactly.
So they move through dimensions that way, so it appears that it's moving as you're looking interdimensionally. Yeah. Yeah,
it was a very kind of a mystical experience. So I'm pulled over. I was driving my little sports car, and I pulled over to the side and got out. And I'm looking up, right? And right behind me, this plumber guy pulls up at the stop sign, And he's looking up, and I said, do you see that up there? He says, yeah, I saw it about a block away. I drove this way to get a little closer.
Woo, that gave me chills.
Yeah. So he was looking at it, and then right across the street, I mean, because I'm standing in the middle of the street, and this girl pulls up, because she lives there on the corner. Cute little Mexican girl, as a matter of fact, really cute. Anyway, you know, I pointed up. You know, she kind of looked at me like, what's this guy doing standing out in the middle of the street looking up? And I said, look up there. She goes, oh my gosh. She says, what is that? Man, oh man, she whipped her cell phone out so quick to try to take pictures. I tried, by the way, and it blended in with the sky because everything was blue.
Oh.
The sky was blue. The ribbon that was, you know, floating from the was blue, and the light was blue. It blended right in. I had nothing on my screen, unfortunately.
Oh gosh.
So I tried, but yeah, no cigar on that one. And so maybe that was on purpose. Maybe that was on purpose. It's like, okay, Dennis, we will let you see us. We will hover in a place where we know we're going to attract your attention.
Right. So now we're not going to
let you photograph us.
We also know we have to talk about that some of these crafts are man-made, and also some UFOs that have, because even I think the Pentagon disclosed that they have craft that they have confiscated. Yes. So they have reversed engineered these crafts and replicated them. And the big thing, as you and I both know, they're really focused on anti-gravity. I mean, this is the big deal.
Oh, yes.
They can learn anti-gravity. That is the most efficient energy resource that we can have. So we're done with fuel. We're done with electricity. We're going anti-gravity. That's like.
And of course, there are theories out there that it was a mastery of anti-gravity that facilitated the building of the pyramids and the.
That's right.
Manipulation with ease.
I also
those huge rocks, stone squares, blocks.
I heard, but don't quote me, but I heard somewhere that somebody said that there was a prize of millions of dollars to any scientist or research company that would like to duplicate the technology of how the pyramids were built and build it.
Yes.
Which is so crazy and so fun.
Well, I know that
I would love somebody to do that.
Some of the top architects in the world I know that have an interest in how they were built, trying to analyze it and everything. When you look at the alignment of it, north, south, east, west, the architects say today, some of the top building architects in the world say, we do not have the technology to build with that kind of precision.
Right.
And have the end product end up as north, south, east, west perfection and all the other dimensions of the thing.
But also they have to use the technology available at the time. That's what makes it really complex.
Exactly.
That's where you start thinking about sound technology and alien sound technology that was given
and anti-gravity,
the ancient
levitating things.
Exactly.
You know, transforming something, for example, into its quantum energetic. Let's assume that those big stones were cut out of quarries because they know where the quarries are across the other side of the Nile, you know, but how did they drag them across the desert, and then how did they get them across the Nile?
Right.
But they carved those things out, managed to transport them that distance somehow,
right,
and then to position them so precisely, perhaps, and I'm just postulating here, but perhaps they were able, with sound, to transform them into the quantum energetic form, which would be light as a feather, position it perfectly, and then take away the frequency, and it would re-solidify it into 3D from an other dimensional form that they have created with sound vibrations.
So
because everything has a unique frequency. Think about that, you know, with the way cymatics works.
Do you know if it was made with limestone? I'm trying to remember. I have to look it up.
A lot of limestone and a lot of granite.
Granite, yeah, because that was what the Egyptians.
Yes.
Yeah, because that was the strongest material.
You know, and a lot of people don't know this. I know because I've been in the mining industry, but granite actually can contain gold. I mean, not like nuggets of gold in it or anything, but little specks of gold all throughout it. I have some pieces that I found in Nevada. Just it looks like regular granite, but you know, you start looking closer and oh my gosh, and then you get a little eyepiece like the geologists use, and you go, oh my gosh, there's freaking gold in this granite.
That's incredible.
And of course, gold has a lot of amazing properties. I mean, all of the famous, you know, King Tut's mask and everything. Why is all of that made out of gold? Why didn't they use silver or platinum or molybdenum or something else that was shiny?
When I was when I was in the Cairo Museum and we were in the Tutankhamun area, they were showing the level of gold that this young pharaoh lived in. And you know, that's another topic, but thanks to you in that post that you did about ancient Egypt and matriarchy, I followed up with Stephen Mailer, and I just interviewed him today on ancient Egypt, and he's an alternative Egyptologist, and he's also has a master's degree in women's studies. So what we did was we discussed matriarchy over time. So he has shown through scientific research that the pharaohs were all women, and you know, I got to go deeper into it before I start, you know, sharing what he shared with us.
I can't wait to hear that interview.
I'm uploading it as we speak. It's going to go up on my page tonight, and everybody can watch it. And he decided that he would like to do like a 5-part series. So every week he's going to talk a little bit more about ancient Egypt and his discoveries over 55 years of being a master alternative Egyptologist. And he's alternative because he's starting to bring in a different level of science into understanding the archaeology, the geology, and the tools used, and then matching that with the glyphs and everything. And so he's starting to, him and a couple other people have different beliefs than the Egyptologists, the traditional Egyptologists have, and that they present in colleges and how they're teaching it. They have more advanced technology, and so of course they're ridiculed, and they're totally, you know, like they're not popular, right?
Out of the box is always ridiculed at first until the person gets a Nobel Prize, and then everybody's going, "Oh wow,
right?
Gee, I guess she was right all along."
But what I like is that he brought in different sciences into it, and he's worked with a lot of different people that bring in their science to understand these glyphs and all the structures and how things are put together, different artifacts they found.
The good ones always do that. You know, we were talking about Dr. Lear earlier, who was the reason that I was able to go out in the woods with Travis Walton.
Yeah.
I remember him telling me a story one time of one of the chemical analysts that he was using to analyze the metals in an implant that he had pulled out of a human being that they thought was ET. And it was a friend of his that worked at the Los Alamos U.S. government labs. You know, Los Alamos is like Area 51 and Wright-Patterson. You know, those are the famous places where supposedly they have the confiscated UFO craft that are picked up and reverse engineered and everything. And unfortunately, Dr. Lear said, yeah, 2 weeks after I gave him that sample, he was dead. So whatever he discovered when he analyzed that, they didn't even want it to get back into Dr. Lear's hands.
If this is the same Dr. Lear I've heard on Coast to Coast.
Yes, that's him. Now, he died 2 years ago, unfortunately, but he was...
Yeah, he's way out there. You guys think we're out there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know.
Way out.
Yes.
Some of this stuff, I can't follow him. You know, I kind of follow along and then I go, whoa, that's a little too far for me. But I appreciate all of where he's coming from. I had an idea while you were talking. I'm going to run it by you. What do you think of this idea? I believe I've had some contactee abduction experiences in the psychic realm. I know I have on one occasion, which was documented and it was witnessed by Riz. That was different. But I believe I've had more experiences that I have just forgot. How about if I get a hypnotherapist and film it that takes people, contactees, they go back into their alien experiences to see what alien experiences they have had. And I get hypnotized and I film it and put it on YouTube.
That would be very, very interesting. Very, very intriguing because, you know, for those of you out there that are familiar at all with hypnosis,
right,
and what can come forward as far as previous experiences go in a hypnotic session, can be quite profound. And
You know who Barbara Lamb is? Of course.
no, I'm not familiar with Barbara Lamb.
Oh, Barbara Lamb. She is a ufologist, hypnotherapist that's very well known in the UFO community, and she was actually in contact in the desert, and I got a picture with her. She's elderly now. I think she's retired, and she's precious. And I called her like 8 years ago, and I asked for a session because of all my alien experiences I was having.
Sure.
She talked me out of it. She said, I don't recommend it because you don't know what you are unearthing and what's coming up. You have been, your memory has been blocked for a reason. You probably don't want to experience what you went through. So it's not recommended because you could actually be sent into PTSD. You could be sent into traumatic response that can change your life forever. Only do it if you absolutely have to make your life a better place. Like you can do it because maybe you're suffering too much about some alien experiences. She goes, but if it's somebody like you who has memory repression, I would just leave it there. If you can just go without it, I would recommend that. Can you believe that?
Very interesting. Very, very interesting because, well, and you have to respect what she told you. I have great respect for the way that she told you to hold out because, she's speaking from experience. She's seen people have, I'm sure, many times regret that they did it.
Right. And I waited, all these years I haven't requested, but just now while you were talking, I was thinking, could be this is the time now because I'm very solid. I'm in a good place. I can handle it. I've cleared a lot of things and it would be really great to film it. And she can come here and I'll put it, put the camera on the couch and I'll go under and I'll just start reliving my alien experiences.
That would be very, very interesting. Yes, yes. That sounds like a wonderful adventure. And everybody would be fascinated.
And maybe you'll be next. Well,
maybe. Maybe. Well, I have to tell everybody my two missing time experiences.
Yes.
Oriah and I will explain a little bit about what that is. But for me, both were actually not only benevolent as far as how I felt afterwards.
Right.
But exciting and it's like, oh, wow, that was really cool. I mean, it's not like I, woke up shocked or anything like that. Both times I was driving. Okay. Mm-hmm. One of the times was in Southern California.
You mean riding out in your ATV?
No, both times. The first time was in the mid-'70s, and I was a booking agent for top 40 rock and roll bands in nightclubs all over Southern California.
Oh, yeah, I forgot you did that.
So I was on my way home at about 2 o'clock in the morning in a beautiful little '69 white Corvette that I had. And I was quite a ways from home. I mean, I was way on the east side of Orange County, and I was living down at the beach. So near Newport Beach, for those that are familiar with Southern California. So I remember getting onto the freeway going west, and then all of a sudden it was blank. And then I, quote unquote, woke up like an hour and a half later, and it would only have been about a 20-minute drive to get home, because at that time of night you can ride along about 90 miles an hour back in the 70s,
Right.
So I knew I was going to be home in about 20 minutes, and an hour and a half had gone by. When I, quote unquote, woke up behind the wheel, and it wasn't out of control or anything, and I look up, and here's the 7th Street off-ramp for Long Beach, which was way north on the 405 from where I was going to get off to go home. And I thought, whoa, what happened? Well, I knew right off the bat, I could feel it. I just had a missing time experience. And then shortly thereafter, I had a psychic reading, and I asked, well, did they take me and my car up? Oh, yeah. They just took your car up too, and actually they plopped you down a little out of town so that you would realize what happened.
Oh my God! How old were you?
Let's see. That would have been about
you were in your 20s.
Somewhere between 23 and 25 years old.
Right. So what was your other time lapse experience?
So the other time, I was with my mining partner, Paul, and again, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, okay? And
that's when mine was, 2 o'clock in the morning. Go ahead.
Yep. And so usually what we would do is, because we had a mining truck that we kept in Nevada that belonged to Paul. And mind you, folks, this is about 300 miles north of Vegas and about 300 miles south of Reno on the west side of Area 51. So really kind of out in the boonies.
Wow.
And usually what we would do is I would drive up to LA from the Palm Springs area here, park my vehicle in Paul's garage. We'd hop in his Cadillac and drive up to Nevada. But from LA, we would usually go up further north of LA and cut across the top of Death Valley to get over into Nevada, going east.
And there's nothing out there.
Yeah. So the way that works is there's a little town called Stovepipe Wells. It's in the down dip of the top 1/3 of Death Valley. Right. And just after you go through, well, what you would call the town of Stovepipe Wells, which amounts to a motel and a mini mart and a bunch of hookups for RVs, and that's it.
That's it. Wow.
That's it for Stovepipe Wells, yeah. And so when you get to the far side of Stovepipe Wells, you can either go left or right. It no longer goes straight. Right. And if you make a left, you only go down about a block and a half, and then you make a right turn, and that takes you up through a kind of almost a mountainous type of area and over into Nevada. Right. If you continue north on that road, then it takes you up to Scotty's Castle, which is a famous tourist attraction within Death Valley National Park. So Paul and I had been that way many, many times. And I made the left turn, and I'm looking for the right turn. And there was a big sign at this right turn, and kind of like a park bench, but there was a big sign that said, this way to this attraction in Death Valley, that way to that attraction in Death Valley, kind of a directional sign. And I kept going a little further, and I stopped, and I said, Paul, I said, our turnoff isn't there. He says, no, that couldn't be, Dennis. I said, no, I'm telling you. I said, you know what it looks like. We can only turn right. It doesn't turn left. It's only about less than a block when we make the left-hand turn and then jog to the right and go on over into Nevada. Right. He says, well, make a U-turn and go back and watch. So I'm going really, really close. And that night there was no moon, okay? And there must have been some sort of cloud cover because it was dark. I mean, if you turned your headlights off, you could see nothing. Wow. And this is like, 2 o'clock in the morning out in the middle of freaking Death Valley, right? Middle of the night. So I go along really, really slow, and we get to the T where I can only make a right turn or go straight, which would go south into Death Valley. I said, well, we're to the intersection. He says, we'll make a U-turn and go back the way that we know, and it'll be on the right-hand side and, a couple hundred feet. Right. So we did. We made the U-turn. And once again, it wasn't there. I said, Paul, how could a paved road and a big sign for the national park, Death Valley National Park, how could all of that disappear? He said, well, I don't know, Dennis. I said, I don't, this is really, really weird. So he says, well,
you turned around and came back and it still wasn't there?
We kept looking, we kept looking for it, right? So he says, hey, Dennis, he says, well, then just go on north. We'll go all the way up to Scotty's Castle, which is on the north end of Death Valley, and then we'll head east over into Nevada. I said, okay, that sounds cool, So that was the last thing that Paul and I both remembered, was talking about going north towards Scotty's Castle. Oh. And when we wake up, we're on the road that we couldn't find because we're approaching the little town of Beatty, Nevada. And I said, Paul, I said, look, those are the lights of Beatty. He says, no way. He says, we missed the turn. Don't you remember, Dennis? We couldn't find the turn. We should be approaching Scotty's. We should be approaching Scotty's Castle.
Oh, no.
So again, about an hour and a half was gone.
Wow.
And both of us had separate psychic readings soon after and asked about it. And both of our psychic readings said, oh yeah, they took you guys up the whole car and everything. and put you back on
what they did to you.
Yeah, and put you back on the road that you wanted to be on so that you would understand what happened, but they blanked your memory as far as the experience on the ship. But nothing to worry about. It was totally benevolent. You were there learning things.
You need to have you need a hypnotherapy session so you can find out what happened to you on that ship.
What an experience, huh? So those are my two.
That's extreme.
Those were my two missing time experiences, way apart years-wise, but interesting how they both happened in the middle of the night, and both when I was driving, and in both instances, they took the car and everything right up.
Well, that should teach us a lesson not to drive at 2 in the morning in the middle of nowhere. But let me tell you, I have a similar story. So I'm driving on the 5 South. So
Right.
5 South going through Fresno, coming
Okay.
down on the Grapevine.
Yes.
It was around 2:15 a.m. My cousin and I were driving. I was driving the car. We were laughing and joking about things. Who knows? We were young, in our early
Sure.
20s.
Yeah.
We're coming down, and we saw it said, "Welcome to Fresno." So we automatically just looked at the time, took note of the time, and
Sure.
yeah, and we just kept driving and laughing and talking and everything. And time went by for a while. We don't know how long. And all of a sudden, Dennis, the sign went by again.
Wow.
Welcome
Oh my gosh.
to
The
Fresno.
same sign in the same position.
We stopped talking, and our eyes just, like, we froze. Our brains couldn't process what happened. So we got very quiet. It was like we were hypnotized, and we stopped. We were laughing, talking, joking. Everything was funny because we were making so much many jokes. And then all of a sudden, just silence. When we saw the sign twice,
Yes.
and then we looked at the time, and it said 2:23.
Isn't
So,
this interesting?
yeah.
That both of our experiences have been around
At
that
the
2 a.m.
same time. And it was in the middle of the Grapevine, which is the longest freaking road.
Oh yeah, that's
Nothing's
remote
on there.
out there.
So,
I know.
be careful when you guys are driving at 2 in the morning in the middle of nowhere. Keep your eyes
And I have done that so much. Oh my gosh. I've come in hours after dark all by myself.
Well, why do you like
remote,
driving at that hour? Is it because it's
from
cooler?
remote. Well, you know,
You drive a lot in the middle at that hour.
I wasn't on purpose driving at that hour necessarily. I mean, when you're in the nightclub business, booking rock bands.
That's what it was.
I would hit like 7 or 8 clubs in one night, a lot of times. And so I was always coming home, I'd always close, so to say, the last, the bars would have to close at 2 a.m.
Right.
So I'd always try to route myself to where I was at the closest bar to home.
Right.
That I actually booked into, because in that business, if the owner or the general manager, whoever books the entertainment, if they don't see you in their club for 2 or 3 times a week, and it only has to be for 5 minutes, but unless you're in there 2 or 3 times a week and you contact them, hey, I got a band that'll blow your place's doors off, right? Well, how do you know, Dennis? You never come in. How do you know what my crowd likes? So it was routine for me to be out, on my way home somewhere between 2 and 4 a.m., usually 6 nights a week. It was the nature of my business. And then sometimes I'd get a late start from the desert here up to LA to pick Paul up, and then we drive up to Nevada. So a lot of times we were driving in the middle of the night through Death Valley.
I mean, I got to tell you, it's so magical and mystical to drive through the desert at that hour. You have nothing.
It is, isn't it?
It's another
very
world.
mysterious.
It's beautiful, and the veil is very thin. It's like you could talk about anything, and you really feel yourself going into those realms.
Oh, yes.
I love it. And I can't wait. You sent us a link to go visit that place in, I don't know exactly where it's located. The place that has the stars that are 6 layers deep everywhere you
look.
Yes.
Moon.
Yeah, what's the name of that place?
Well, it's the old Weepaw Gold Mine location.
Okay. What I mean by it's like the moon is like you are walking on the moon. That's what it's like. Because I saw the pictures, the landscape of the terrain, and you're in the middle of nowhere. And so Dennis was telling us that if you really want to see the stars and you're out in California, this area, if you go to this area, you will look up and see layers and layers of stars that are piled up on top of each other. And it's like,
and they go all the way down to the horizon.
You see the Milky Way, right?
Yeah. When you're in a city and there's lights and you go out at night, right on the horizon, it's just dark. You really don't see any stars. You have to look up higher and higher and higher, and then you start to see stars.
You see satellites and shooting.
In this spot, it's so dark that the stars are thick all the way down to the horizon.
So when Riz and I go, we're bringing our new, those binoculars, the UFO binoculars.
Oh, yes.
You could show us
yes. Actually, that particular spot, I have to tell you, I've been up there after dark a number of times, and that particular spot is about 75 miles from town where I would go back to sleep at night.
Right.
And sometimes I'd work up there at that gold pit for 5 or 6 days in a row. So, you know, I would work, and if it was summertime, I would work until it gets dark. I don't stop at 5 o'clock. There's work to be done. So I'd work until it got dark. So I have a 75-mile drive back to town after dark. So ample, and this is in a place in Nevada that's just slightly north and west of Area 51.
Right.
So a very likely area, you know, to have sightings, because now on the other side, on the southeast corner, just off of the Area 51 area, is that famous little town. Gosh, I'm trying to think what it is now. Where the little Ailey Inn is. They call it the Ailey Inn.
Oh,
anyway.
Is it next to Area 51?
Yes, but it's on the east side. So it's north and east of Vegas. Anyway, both of those areas are well known for sightings. Area 51 is kind of buried in the middle of the southern portion of what they call the Nevada test site, which is multiple military bases with multiple different names. And if you look at an aerial of what the so-called Nevada test site, and you zoom out, it occupies almost 2/3 of the center of the state of Nevada. It's huge. What? And so Area 51 is a small area, relatively speaking, within the Nevada test site, kind of on the southern end of the test site. So it's closer to Vegas than it is to Reno, for example.
Oh, okay.
And I remember a lot of years back, they had to expand the perimeter of how close you could get as a layperson. Oh, gee, I'm going to get up on a hilltop and look with binoculars, see what's going on at Area 51. They expanded the perimeter by 26 miles in all directions, so that people couldn't stand on a hilltop with a high-end telescope. Right. They didn't want them to see too much.
Right.
So they've done progressive things to keep that area sealed off from the public for a lot of years.
That's incredible.
So yeah, there's still a lot of mystery around that place, you know.
Yeah.
And so many stories.
Well, it's not done sharing its secrets, because I know that we're going to know more and find out more about, you know, what goes on there and the disclosures.
Yes.
It will be, now that we are starting to talk about it in a public way, like as far as the government. So there's going to be probably more, hopefully,
you know,
more disclosures.
On that note, one of the interesting things I think that all of our listeners may find fascinating, if they're fascinated with UFOs and this whole subject and everything, is that, you know, because I attended all 7 years that have occurred so far of the Contact in the Desert event. The very first year, there were, no more than maybe about 300 to 500 attendees, mostly from the Southwest. If you ask people where they were from, well, San Francisco, Phoenix, Vegas, Southern California, a few people from Utah, you know, mostly the Southwest. The next year, there were a few people scattered from around the United States, and the attendees almost doubled. You know, the next year, I think in year 2, there were 1,500 or 2,000 people. And I watched it graduate all the way up to the 7th year. There were about 5,000 people. But these people are coming in from around the world because they have such a hunger for this knowledge. You know, I mean, these are all of the top, as you well know, UFO experts from around the world. I mean, the famous Eric von Däniken comes in from Switzerland every year to do that show, you know, and be here for 4 days. So many, many prominent speakers. But what fascinated me is I'm meeting people from New Zealand and Australia and Germany and Canada and China and England and Denmark and Italy. I mean, they come in from around the world. And unlike us Americans, most of them all speak English. They usually speak multiple languages. Here in the United States, we're about the only ones that only speak, you know, what do you talk? What do you, English only, right? So, talking to these people, here's one of the most interesting things, Oriah and everybody that's listening, is I always like to pause and ask them, out of curiosity, now that you're here at this event, were you already here in the U.S. on vacation and you heard about this and this is a side trip? Or did you come just for this? Oh, no, we came just for this. We wouldn't have missed it for anything. No, now we may do a little vacationing while we're here. No, we came here specifically for Contact in the Desert because we want to hear all these renowned experts from around the world that have written books and done documentaries, and half of them we see on every episode of Ancient Aliens on the History Channel. You know, people like Dr. Lear and Nick Pope and Gilliland and all of these famous UFO experts that have written, you know, and they've all got dozens of videos on YouTube. I mean, you can look all these people up. And here, actually, you can do a search on YouTube, by the way, folks, for Contact in the Desert 2012, Contact in the Desert 2013. And a lot of the episodes
live
now.
Streaming or something because of COVID, they're going to have to do live streaming now or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to come down this next year. You know, they had to skip this year because of COVID, but it is planned for roughly the same time slot, the first weekend of June, I believe, of 2021. So maybe we'll be back to group, you know, gatherings being allowed by that time, or remain to be seen. There's a lot of excitement to being at that live event. You and Riz have been there. You know, there's nothing like it. And it's so interesting because, so here's now, it's become a gathering of people from around the world that are passionately interested in that subject. You know, I remember the third year, there was a guy that was all, you know, I mean, here out in the desert, everybody dresses casual. You know, the event was always during the summertime, so everybody's always lightly dressed. And this guy's in this very proper suit, you know, with a vest on and a tie and everything. He looked very prim and proper. And I said, "Excuse me, sir, where'd you come in from?" You know, and he says, "Oh, I'm a professor of such and such at Boston University." So I thought, I'm going to tease this guy a little bit. I kind of looked around. I said, "Aren't you afraid of being seen at an event like this, that people think that you're one of those nutcases that believes in UFOs?" Oh, and he got real indignant. He says, "What do you mean, here to find out?" He says, "I've seen UFOs several times. I'm not here to find out if they're real. I'm just here to find out more. I know that they're real."
That's great.
And he was, you know, and a lot of those people that are there are that way. They're not there just out of idle curiosity. They've had their own experiences, whether they've been on crafts or seen crafts or whatever their experience was. That's why they're there. They're to find out more of something that they're already convinced of.
Right. Well, Dennis, on that note, you just drove us home in a beautiful spaceship and landed us very softly from that nice big show we just had. It feels like we covered a lot of territory today, and we've had such a good chunk of, you know, experiences and things that we really wanted to talk about, and we got to cover that today. And, you know, we're always going to be covering UFO experiences and contactee experiences over the different shows in the future. But I really just want to thank you so much for coming in at such a hard time in the summer, in the desert, when it's so difficult to do the show. And I just appreciate it so much.
This is way too much fun to miss. This is way too much fun to miss. I wouldn't miss it for anything.
Well,
thank you so much.
I'm starting to get a feeling that we need to also talk about, because when we were talking about time lapsing, I was also thinking about time machines and time, you know, travel and things like that. So I'm wondering if maybe that should be a show we should look into.
Sure. And we might want to go back.
We could talk about Corey Good and.
Yes. And because you have so many new members that are joining every day.
I know. 1,000 members
will be watching. I would like to go back at some future episodes and retouch a little bit on all the healing technologies, like the tachyon chambers and the med beds and the blue room and the life vessel frequency and sound healing technologies. It'd be fun to go back and revisit that a little bit from time to time, because I think a lot of people are interested in that right now too. Truly. And we have a lot of new listeners.
I know somebody who is regularly going to one of the machines that you recommended, and he's really—
the life vessel, yes.
He's experiencing, his vision is changing and becoming better. His prescription's not working anymore. He has to change it. His eyes are healing. His eyes are becoming, it's reversing. That's his, the first symptom. He's only had, I think, 3 visits. So.
Wow.
Really cool.
That's exciting.
Really
and that was something he completely was not expecting.
No, that was like a side effect.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, what a bummer side effect, right? Oh, my vision is coming back to perfection.
Right.
Wow. Well, it
Yeah.
just goes to show what frequencies and light, when they're at the right frequency and the right, because every color, as we all know, has a different frequency. That's, you know, a red laser, a green laser, and a blue laser. The reason the laser is different color because it's vibrating at a different frequency. So keep that in mind, folks. You are a radiator of frequency and light.
If anybody has any questions of what we just kind of briefly discussed here, we've done shows on the topic. They're called tachyon beds. Is that correct?
Tachyon chambers.
Chambers.
Med bed.
Med beds. Those are two different things.
Yes.
So if you have specific questions, please reach out to Dennis Strahl.
Yes, no problem.
On Facebook, actually, preferably. But
sure.
Is there an email that you would give out if they don't?
You know what? Probably the best thing is just private message me on Facebook. That's the easiest and fastest way.
Okay.
Yes.
So they can reach out to you and ask you any questions if they want more information. We also
yes, and they can even post their question so the other members can see. They could post their question to me, tag me in the question on the Starseed Facebook page. I will still see it, and then everybody could see the response.
So the name of our group is United Starseed Connections Group. I'm the founder. So those of you that are new, welcome. We opened May 12th, 2020. That's when we opened our doors, and I have been doing how-to videos on ascension and awakening. I have done interviews. I have 2 shows. I have a morning show and an evening show every week. And Cosmic Coffee is my morning show, and then Quantum Mysteries with Dennis is our evening show. And I just want to welcome you if you're new to our group. We're not like any other group. We're very different. You could read more about it on the, I don't want to take up our time right now to go over the details, but you can read more about it on our page. Also go to our website, UnitedStarseedConnectionsGroup.com. Please subscribe, please follow, please send to your friends, please comment, anything you do to help keep this going. This is all just passion of love. And I'm going to keep on going because I think education is everything and people need to know what is going on. So it's really good that we have different opinions and everybody talks about all of the different things that we know. So we're just putting our 2 cents into the bucket. But like Dennis always says, do your own research. Don't take our word for it. And so I just want to thank you guys. So Dennis, would you like to say any last words? You always like to close with such lovely words.
Well, the one thing that I always like to emphasize to everyone is happiness has everything to do with the frequency and vibration that you radiate at. So the more things that you can do, search out whatever works for you, listen to your favorite song, making love with your mate, whatever it is, you know, running in the park, walking your dog, sitting out in the backyard, closing your eyes and feeling the breeze and listening to the leaves rustle, whatever brings blissful happiness to you will raise your vibration and increase your momentum towards becoming clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, all of these so-called spiritual skills that we can develop that are life-enhancing. So that's what I'll leave everybody with. And thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, everybody. Much love and sleep tight. Have a good night. Bye-bye.